Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden, and today I'm going to be giving you an update on all of my seedlings I've planted so far, and I'm going to be showing you how to thin out seedlings and why we thin them out. Okay, we are at the very end of January. North Texas is experiencing a large amount of sleet, which is basically ice falling from the sky. The idea is that I guess the ice, like, it falls and then it unfreezes and then it refreezes before it hits the earth, and it causes a whole thing. And it's North Texas and we're not used to this, and it's like 2.5 days of sleet. Raining sleet. So very crazy and unusual. I'll show you guys a few photographs of what all that looks like. We have had snow, but sleet is a whole other ball game regarding the amount of ice that we get on the roads here and how we are just not equipped to deal with that. So school's canceled, everything's canceled. So all my family's home for the next 3 days, which I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited about. So what I wanted to do was give you an update on the seeds that I've already started this year, 2023. I've started a wide variety of flower seeds, and I always forget to go back and update about them each year, or each season after I'm done. And so what I wanted to do is I'm basically just going to show you all the seeds that I started in the month of January, show you where they're at, the struggles I've had, what's done really well, and what has not done so well. Okay, the first round of seeds I'm going to be showing you are seeds that I started on January 7th. So we are just under 3 weeks. Yep, just under 3 weeks today. I wanted to give you guys an update. These are all the seeds that I'm growing in the Vigo containers. If you recall, I opted to try out the Vigo containers this year. I decided to try them because I don't garden in like this massive thing where I, need 72 of one particular seed or anything like that. Basically, I typically plant between 4 and 10 seeds of any particular variety of plant. And when you're trying to germinate seeds, you want to germinate like ones together, right? You want to be able to, put them in a container, have the same conditions, and all the seeds in that particular tray meet those same conditions. So this allowed me to do that. We have the Vigo trays, and they have, the bottom part has holes in the bottom. You can see the roots all coming out of here. It has slits on the side to allow really great airflow. And then in the center portion right here is an empty cell, and that has channels to each of the other cells that allows you to drip water when you're first starting the seeds. So this is the lid that goes on top. You pour the water in, the water drips out and feeds all the containers. Is really great. I'm no longer utilizing the tops anymore because these seeds germinated, and then it was time to take off the humidity domes. So let's talk about each of the individual seeds. Let me move the camera closer so you can see better. Okay, so let's start with the apricot status. Everything did really, really well. One cell did not germinate, but the other 7 did. Everything looks good. I have multiple seedlings in each one, so these definitely need to be thinned out. We already have the roots coming out the bottom, which is really great. So we had those did beautifully, apricot status. Also have Pacific mix status. So this was multiple varieties of colors. Everything germinated, and then it definitely looks like I need to do some thinning out on that one as well. But that's looking really good. These are about 3-week-old seedlings. I did not use any heat mats for these. Just wanted to make sure I was clear about that. I also have the Forever Silver status. Everything germinated, looking really good. Everything looks strong and healthy. Then I also have Russian status, which is a little bit of a different look on status. Its seedlings are super tiny, and it definitely takes longer. So I did have one cell that did not germinate over here, but I have lots of other germination on the other ones. I have seen a little bit of yellowing on these, so I'm not sure if they're not getting enough light. I'll kind of go over some different things to look out for the seedlings, but I'll definitely need to evaluate these a little and see if there's anything I need to do for them. All right, next let's talk scabiosa. I started 3 varieties of scabiosa. This first one is Fama Deep Blue. I had all but one cell germinate. Everybody looks really, really good. They are looking a little leggy, which means I probably need to move them closer to the light source. I have this one right here, which is Fama White, all looking really beautiful. All cells germinated. Over here, I have Scabiosa Salmon Rose. I had 3 cells not germinate. So, but I did have a couple over here. I might see if I can move some of the other seedlings over into here. But these are looking really good. They're a little behind these other varieties, but this is a very different type of Scabiosa variety than this salmon rose. This was kind of a tighter look. So I'm not surprised that they look a little bit different. I also have one set of straw flower in here. This is the Monstrosum mix, tall mix, and these did beautifully. Everything germinated. Definitely need to weed those out. I did have 2 containers of that, and I'll show you that in the other container. All right, and here's my other container of straw flowers. Really pretty, looks good, strong. Everything really did well germinating that. Then I have quite a few snapdragons. So these, I've got all snapdragons across the front, different varieties. This first one is called Bridal Pink, doing really well. I had one cell that germinated and then died. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'm gonna have to pay attention to that. But they're looking strong and beautiful. I'm very happy with how well everything germinated in the Vigo containers. This is all Madame Butterfly Rose. This one right here is Madame Butterfly Bronze with white. Absolutely beautiful. These all germinate just splendidly. And then the last one is another container of Snapdragon Madame Butterfly Bronze with white. Absolutely beautiful. And then back here I have 2 containers of stock. This is Avalanche Supreme, which is a white. I do feel like these feel a little bit leggy. I did have one cell that did not germinate. These feel a little leggy to me, in my opinion. And then I have stock Apricot, and I had 2 cells. Well, I see one trying to germinate actually kind of late over here, but I do have 2 cells who originally didn't germinate, but one who's trying to come up right now, which is crazy, like 3 weeks later, right? Okay. So let's look at the next round. This was the first round of seedlings I did, and those were January 7th. So let's look at the next round of seedlings that I did. Okay, the next round of seeds I did on January 18th, and I definitely had some mixed results. I was focusing on alyssum, violas, and pansies. Alyssum all came up looking really good. Oh, actually, I take it back. I have one cell that doesn't look good. It's a little leggy, so I think I needed to have these closer to the light source. Secondly, the next one, violas, bulls, black. I actually had 4 that did not come up at all, and I had 4 that did. I was kind of surprised. Usually violas are pretty good sprouting for me. But then even over here with the Viola Miniola Aqua, I've only had 2 come out of all the cells. And y'all, I mean, I overseeded these cells. There's like 3 or 4 in each of these, 3 or 4 seeds in each of these. So I did not have very good germination with the Miniola Aqua. And this one is brand new to me this year. I'm a little disappointed. And then my viola over here, Frizzle Swizzle, I had 7 of the 8, but I do have this 8th one is still trying to come up, but it did really, really well on germination. So these are about 13 days old. And then this tray right here is petunias and pansies. For the petunia Triumph mix, all 8 cells came up beautifully. For the petunia lace veil, all but 1 came up. So this one right here did not come up. I see one trying to come up still though. I take that back. There is still one trying to come up there, but I did have really good germination on these other ones. And then the Pansy Black Devil, all 4, I only did 4 of it. All 4 of those came up. So they're looking pretty good. All these seedlings are 13 days old. I don't know if I might mess with these a little bit. Yeah, and go ahead and thin these out a little bit. Okay, and then on January 24th, which is just 1 week ago, I sowed these Dianthus, and they're doing really good. I have 1 row of Dianthus, a sweet black cherry. I did 7 plants or 7 seeds, and 6 of the 7 seeds have come up. For Dianthus Sweet Purple White, I did 7 seeds, and 4 of the 7 have come up so far. We're only a weekend. These take I think 10 to 14 days. So we're actually a little bit early on it. And then the Dianthus Sweet White, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All 7 came up. These are looking really good. After about 75% of the seeds have germinated, I take the dome off. So these are doing really good. And then this was my kind of lazy way of doing soil blocking. I do these rows. It works really, really well, especially if you don't want to buy the soil blocker or anything. This is a really great way to do your seeds, cheap, easy, and it's easy to water and care for them. Okay, and then as for my delphinium and bells of Ireland, we're only 1 week in with those, and those take up to 3 weeks to begin sprouting or germinating. So I've got nothing going on with them. They're all hanging out right here in these 3 containers. One of the containers I'm having trouble keeping the humidity on, so I keep having to add water just like this over time, making sure it's staying nice and moist in there. This lid doesn't secure as well, but the other ones are staying nice and humid. Everybody's looking really good. I expect the bells of Ireland to germinate before the delphinium, but I'll try to give you an update on the delphinium and bells of Ireland sometime in February, towards the end of February, to let you know if they've germinated or not. You'll know that delphinium can be very, very picky. Okay, so let's talk about a few things about our seedlings, how we can continue to care for our seedlings, and things we need to look for adjusting how we're caring for the seedlings. So one of the easiest things you can do for your seedlings is to make them stronger is you can run your hands over them. Run your hands over them, allow them to kind of brush, we call brushing them, and it kind of just allows them to grow stronger by being moved around a little bit. You can just do this with your hands. Make sure that you don't have anything on your hands, like don't have lotion or anything like that on your hands. Just run them over your seedlings, and this makes them stronger. You can also set up a fan to kind of just lightly blow. I wouldn't suggest doing that real early. Allow them to get at least their first, if not second, set of true leaves. So the first set of leaves is, the basic seedling leaves. Those are not the true leaves. The second set and the third set, those are true leaves coming out. So when that first set of true leaves comes out and that second set of true leaves comes out, that's when you can start messing around with them, running your hands over them, or putting a wind source. I just like to utilize, I just have a little fan, and then I just direct lightly blowing. You do not want this right up against your seedlings. You want it away, so you just have a little bit of distance. I'll try to record what that looks like so that you guys can see. But running your hands over this and then having a little bit of air movement in here helps to promote, just really strong, stocky seedlings. I get a lot of questions on when do we start fertilizing our seedlings. Well, you don't want to fertilize them when they're itty bitty. The seed that they're coming out of actually has a lot of the nutrients that they need. You can start fertilizing your seedlings when they have their second and third set of true leaves. So once we're getting to that point, you can start adding a water-soluble fertilizer, and you can add it to the water mix that you're watering with, and I would do it every other feeding. I wouldn't do it every feeding. We don't want to overrun these. And I would start lighter on fertilizer and build up over time. When I am doing a water-soluble fertilizing for my seedlings, I like to use the Alaskan fish fertilizer or emulsion, and you just put a little bit of that in your watering can, allow it to mix really, really well, and then water everything. It smells terrible. It doesn't bother me, but if you're someone who is bothered by that, you might reconsider trying something else. But it doesn't smell very good, but it works wonders. You also want to keep raising your lights up as your seedlings are growing tall. It's okay if they're touching a little bit, but you don't want the plant bending underneath the light. So make sure you're raising them as these seedlings continue to grow. You want to have your lights as close as you can to them and then pull it up as they're growing. So let's talk about a few problems that you might be running into with your seedlings. Number one, they're leggy. And I pointed out a couple of mine stock over here that are leggy. That tends to happen when the light is too far away from the seedling tray. So what you need to do is either raise the seedlings up or lower the light down so that the seedling gets a better concentration of light closer to it. When the light and the seedling are too far apart, the seedling overstretches to reach the light. And that's how we end up with leggy seedlings. On another note, if you have seedlings that seem way overstretched and now they've flopped over and they've died, they might have gotten a little too hot and a little too forced to grow too quick. So that's something to consider. When you're using heat mats, you're really only using those heat mats to get that seed germinated. Once the seeds are germinated, you turn the heat mats off. You don't leave them underneath the seedlings the whole time. Now, that can differ in multiple places in that I grow all my seedlings inside. So I don't really need to have any kind of heat mats for inside my home. I do know a lot of people who are out in their garages, and that does end up being a struggle, so you can have your heat mats, but you want to be really careful that you're not cooking your seedlings, that they're not so hot that they're just getting so long and spindly and thin and flopping over dead because they've just had too much heat. So let's talk about slow germination or no germination. There's three different things that could lead up for those. One is the temperature of, or 1 and 2 are the temperatures of your soil, either too cold or too hot. Make sure you read your seedling packets. They're going to tell you what the optimal degree of temperature is for germination. Some seeds prefer a warmer environment, 70 to 80 degrees. Some seeds prefer a cooler environment, almost down to 40 to 50 degrees. They're all very different. Look on your seed packet. If you can't find the information on your seed packet, then go ahead and Google online and find out what's going on with that particular seed. You might see some seeds that have not germinated, are slow to germinate, and it could be due to number 1, it's too hot, or number 2, it's too cold in your soil. The other issue with slow to no germination might be that your seed is planted too deep. And this is one of those things you definitely want to go back to your seed packet, look and make sure you sowed them at the appropriate depth. If they've gotten too deep and perhaps they needed a little bit of light to be able to germinate, they're not going to germinate if they're completely covered by soil. So if you feel like you're getting no germination and you potentially planted your seeds too deep, think about going in and digging them up really quick and raising them up to see if it works. Your seed may or may not still be viable. We'll see. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider whether or not you planted your seed too deeply. There's another death of seedlings called damping off. It's kind of a disease that they get right at the stem. The stem rots, the whole plant falls over it, and it dies. And it usually dies overnight in a heartbeat. This is usually caused by non-sterile soil. Now, I don't use sterile soil, and this hasn't been an issue with me. For me, the two most important things are bottom watering. So you're watering all your trays from underneath. We're not watering on top. We don't want a bunch of liquid sitting around the base of each of the seedling stems or on the leaves, and having airflow, having them in an area. I've got a ceiling fan up high, and then I put on my oscillating fan every once in a while, but having really great airflow to cut down on fungus and bacteria are really important and can help prevent dampening off. Now, I mentioned that my Russian status, the leaves are a little bit yellow, and one of the reasons your leaves might be yellow is low nitrogen, so that might be a really good time for me to go ahead and start fertilizing these Russian status. They are on they're going to their second set of true leaves. I know they look really little, and that's shocking, but they are already on their second set, so it is time to start fertilizing. But yellow leaves on your seedlings can be a nitrogen deficiency. And then the last thing you can be looking for your seedlings is if the leaves feel very pale green or almost brown. Typically that is a sign of overwatering. So whenever you're going to water your trays from the bottom, I usually put in about 1 inch of water. I wait about 30 minutes to an hour. I check my trays, and any additional water that's still there, I pour that water out. I just pick up my whole tray and I just put it at an angle and I pour out the excess water. You do not want just standing water in your trays. It's too much for the plants. So just give it time for as much of that water to soak up as possible, and then drain off any excess. And that'll really help for, not overwatering your seedlings. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to thin out our seedlings. And I get a lot of people are like, why? Why would I thin out my seedlings? I don't want to kill them. Doesn't it just mean that I just have more seedlings? Yes and no. I used to be the same way. I used to be like, oh, but I grew that. I don't want to pull that plant out. Well, you got to think about it. All of these seedlings are in these little tiny containers, and they're all competing for resources. So the sooner you can thin out your seedlings and reduce it to just one seedling in each container, the better it's going to be for your plant overall. The real goal of this, you need to be thinking, is quality over quantity. Okay, you want a quality, strong, sturdy seedling that has had all its nutrients and has not had to fight for anything, rather than having 3 or 4 in there that are semi-okay and weak, and they might not do as well when it's time to move them outside. So really think about that quality over quantity with your seedlings. Now let me show you how to very easily thin them out. Now when thinning out my seedlings, I just like to use a very small pair of embroidery sewing scissors. I bought these on clearance years ago. They're like a little bird with a I just flip and love them. And they're super fun. And what we're going to do is we're literally just going to trim out the seedlings we don't want. Now, a lot of people are like, why can't I just pull out what I don't want? Well, it could disturb the roots of the seedling you want to keep. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we'll go ahead and start with these guys over here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip right at the base of the soil. And I'm actually going to, the ones that look super leggy, I'm going to cut those out. I'm not going to keep all those. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come in, we're going to thin these out so that they're no longer competing with one another. I know it feels so sad to do that, y'all. I totally understand. But this is necessary for quality seedlings. It takes time. It's a little tedious. I actually find it very therapeutic. I find most gardening things very therapeutic. And they bring me a lot of joy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through very simply, find what I think is the strongest seedling, and clip out the others. Okay, here's the aftermath. So sad. And here's everything. I'm making adjustments and moving everything closer up. Looks good. Everything's thinned out, looking better. Oops, there's one little guy left behind. There's a little carnage in a few places. This guy. And then up here, everybody's thinned out real nicely. It looks good. So I moved everything up closer to the lights, so we'll see how it does. It's looking real good. Now I do want to show you guys the wheatgrass seedlings that I started as well. Okay, and here is the wheatgrass. I planted this on January 28th as well, so it's one weekend. Everybody's looking really good. It's growing like crazy. I've actually had it outside up until we got these like crazy temps, but it's doing really good. I had to bring it back inside because we were freezing outside, but it's happy. I have it by a window and then I alternate with it back here for the lights, but it's doing really, really well. Okay, I actually can't find my fish emulsion right now, so I'm going to use a packet of Super Thrive, which is also really great for seedlings. Also smells terrible. And it's one little packet per gallon of water. So I'm just going to pour that in, fill this up with water, and then let's fertilize these seedlings. And we're not trying to like blast these, y'all. We're just trying to get a little bit of air movement so you can kind of see them catching a little bit in the wind. That's it. That's all we're looking for. I'm not looking for this to be 24 hours a day on this. And I do suggest you let your seedlings get their second, like their first set of true leaves, if not their second set of true leaves. Oh, I got a lot just down over here. I just left. Before you start putting air to them. It doesn't have to be 24/7. A lot of times I'll just do it for 3 to 4 hours at a time and then I'll turn it off and take a break, and that works pretty well. Okay, so we are all done taking care of our seedlings. So I gave you a seedling update on all the seeds that I've started for this point. The earliest one I did was January 7th, and they're all doing pretty good. The only one I've been unhappy with is that Viola Miniola Aqua from Baker Creek. I had 2 cells out of 8 germinate, and in each of those cells I had 3 to 4 seeds, so didn't do so great. Maybe it's user error. I do always try to lean towards the side of user error because I'm not a professional, and so maybe it's user error, but then also I have a bunch of Viola and Pansy seeds that did really well in the same tray, so I don't know, we'll see. And then I showed you guys how to thin seedlings and why we thin seedlings. We're doing quality over quantity. You want quality, strong, sturdy seedlings. And then we also went through a few different areas of if you have some concerns with your seedlings, these might be the issues that you're dealing with, whether it's cold or hot soil, whether it's overwatering, underwatering, or potentially a nitrogen deficiency. Or it could be something as simple as not enough light. And so you can see I've raised all my seedlings up higher in their shells. I'm actually wondering if depending on my budget, if I should perhaps consider installing a shelf in between these shelves, so that I would actually have 4 sets of shelves with seedling lights, and then my seedlings would be starting from here up, which seems not like a lot of space, but it's plenty of space for me, because I have just like a temporary cheap greenhouse that I'll set up mid-February, and I'll start moving some of these out for hardening off. So it actually worked really well for me. So maybe that's a consideration to make this system work even better for me. All right, and then I showed you just how I fertilized. I didn't have my Alaskan fertilizer, my fish emulsion around, so I just used Super Thrive, which is really great. I will put the Alaskan fish emulsion, the Super Thrive, and the little embroidery scissors into my Amazon storefront if you want to check those out and if you're interested. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you check me out on my community tab on my YouTube page, and make sure you check me out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.